Hello again, this is Tom from Cradle of Aviation Museum in Garden City for part 2 of your Stellarium tutorial. Part 2 tutorial. If you have not watched part 1 yet, I recommend going back to part 1 and going through the basics. And in that part 1 tutorial, we covered what Stellarium is, where you can find it, stellarium.org, downloading it for your system, and the very basics. We went across the bottom menu bar in Stellarium, the one that's on the screen now, and we went through each of those buttons and what they mean. So you can control constellations with the lines, the artwork, the names, various grids, manipulating the area around you with the landscape and the atmosphere, bringing up different deep space objects or planets, zooming in, zooming out from objects, all that kind of good stuff there, and also manipulating time, moving forward or backwards in time and getting back to now, your default time. So part 2, we're going to be actually concentrating on the other menu bar. So this one down here is the one that we were using first. This time, if you bring your cursor to the left side of your screen, another menu bar will pop out. And we did talk about a couple of things in this menu bar. First, the location window. And if you have your location, if you have it visible on your computer for Stellarium to find out, it will start you off at your location. If you do not, you just need to type it in. For example, New York City. If I could spell New York City correctly, that would help. Boom, and it puts me at the exact latitude and longitude for New York City. Let's say, though, I wanted to see what the sky looked like in Miami. So I would type in Miami, and anything that has Miami in it will come up. So let's say Miami Beach. The little red arrow there went to Miami Beach. The latitude and longitude changed to Miami Beach. So this would be the sky in Miami Beach, or what would be the sky. And just to show you the difference, I'm going to take out the atmosphere. Remember, we did that last time. Now, I'm also going to bring up the constellation lines. There's the Little Dipper right there with Polaris, our North Star, at the end of the handle. Now, you see where it is in that Miami sky, kind of low above the horizon? Well, now I'm going to put in Holbrook, United States of America, where Sachem Public Library is. Click on that, and you see how much higher in the sky it is? So you can go and see the differences between the sky anywhere in the world. And you don't even have to, click or type in a city. You can just click anywhere in the world, and you can see the differences in the sky. It's totally cool. So I'm going to go back to Holbrook, though, because that's where y'all are. Holbrook, there we are. Okay, Holbrook, we're back. Now, not only, though, can you see the sky and where the other planets are and all that stuff from Earth, you can also, if you go down here, you can go to any other celestial body in our solar system, and you can see what the sky looks like from there. For example, Europa. We are on Europa now. That's great. And let's fast forward the time on Europa. Remember, you click that fast forward button 3 times, and we're having a look around. And if you'll notice, the constellations are pretty much the same. That's because the stars are so far apart that, whoa, but what's that? The constellations are so far away from us, I should say, that they don't really change all that much until you get out of our solar system. But did you see those things there? I'm taking out the landscape so we can see everything. You can see Jupiter up in the sky there. You can see other moons of Jupiter going around. So you have a completely different perspective here on Europa than you would on the Earth. You don't see Jupiter like that on the Earth. So it's pretty cool stuff. Now, one thing that you might have noticed before was that, and I'm going to let the sun rise again and then we're going to pause, even though we are on Jupiter, the landscape looks the same. So the sun's about to rise, and here we are with our beautiful grassland. with random Jupiter there. The reason why that's like that is because the landscape doesn't change just because you go to a different solar system body. The landscape stays as the landscape that is selected, and that is the default landscape. We'll get into how you can change that a little later on, but just know that if you go to Jupiter, you're still going to see the same landscape that you had on Earth. So if you want to make it more realistic, you may have to change that in a different menu setting. So let's go back to Earth here. So we're going to select Earth, and we're going to select Holbrook again. And we are there. Okay, awesome. So that is your location menu. Date and time window is the next menu item down. So this is kind of fun. You can go to any date, any time, past, present, future, you can go there. And what I like about this is that it makes it really easy to see how the stars change from night to night, from month to month, from year to year. For example, right now, this is set on June 26, 2020. I'm going to go to July 26, 2020, 1 month ahead, and look at that. The moon appeared above the horizon at 1:43 p.m. So that's where the moon will be on July 26, 2020 at 1:43 p.m. in Holbrook, New York. Now, an hour later, the moon's going to be there, going towards the southeastern sky. An hour later, it'll be there. Great. Awesome. But what about a day later? Did you see that? On the 26th, it was there. On the 27th, it's a little bit lower in the sky at 1:44 p.m. So if that's the case, on the 25th, it should have been higher in the sky. On the 24th, higher still. And notice, it's becoming more and more of a crescent the farther back in time we go, because it's getting closer to the sun. So you can see not only how the moon changes in its position in the sky, you can see how it changes in its phase. So I selected the moon by left-clicking on it. I'm going to hit my / button to zoom in, and let's take a look at that moon a little closer, or a little more closely. See how the phase changes? And then we're back to the 27th, where it's just above the horizon. Now, if we did that again, we would just, I'm going to do it, why not? On the 28th, we're just seeing the grass on the ground, because at this point, on July 28th at 1:45 now p.m., the moon is still below the horizon in Holbrook, New York. But if I take away that landscape, now I can go and keep my eye on the moon and see all of its phases. So that's a really cool way to do that. I'm going to bring up my landscape again. I'm going to zoom out from the moon by hitting the / button and drag my screen around. So that's the moon. Now let's deselect the moon by right-clicking, bring up our date and time window, and let's go to nighttime. So we're going to go to about 9:45 p.m. There we are. Now at 9:45 p.m., we've got, we have Scorpius back there. We have Sagittarius there. There's Jupiter and Saturn. I'm going to bring up my planet labels to show them. Let's go back to our date and time window, and let's see how the stars move from hour to hour. Jupiter and Saturn kind of are staying in line with the stars there. Interesting. But let's go now from this on July 24th at 10:45. Let's go for July 25th at 10:45. 26th, 27th. The stars, everything is just shifting slightly. Oh, there goes the moon. It's the same time essentially, but each day the stars kind of tick forward. But it still looks like Jupiter and Saturn are moving right along with those stars, and they kind of are. But Jupiter and Saturn are planets, and planet, the word planet, comes from the word wanderer in ancient Greece. So, as the stars stay fixed in relation to each other through time, and this time we're going to move from month to month instead of hour to hour, day to day, we're going to move month to month. Jupiter and Saturn are there compared to Sagittarius's teapot. Still there. Still there. Oh, gotta get there. But Jupiter's moved back a little bit from it. How about a year from now? They're not even there anymore. Venus is getting close to where Sagittarius is, but there's Saturn over there, and now Jupiter is over there. So, by going from month to month, even year to year, you can see how the planets move amongst the fixed stars. It's a really powerful, and impactful way to see the movement of the celestial bodies. Now, we're on October 24th, 2021. I want to get back to now. Now, my now is different than your now, because my now is when I'm recording this in June. Your now is not going to be until July, but I'm going to hit now, and here I am, back at now, which is a month in the past for you. Ooh, I'm coming to you from the past. And that's what I do. Okay. So, date and time is great. It's a cool tool to use. Now, Julian day. There are two different Julian days here. There's a Julian date and a modified Julian date. The difference is essentially the modified Julian date lopped off the first two numbers because they changed so infrequently, and it started at midnight instead of noon. You see, the Julian date over here on the left, that began at noon on, boy, what was it? January 1st in the year 4713 BCE. All right. So that was the day when three separate cycles, a solar cycle, a lunar cycle, and a man-made cycle, all lined up. And basically, it's a running tally of time since then. And this is how much time has elapsed. If you look here, that's a second. Those are tenths of a second. And it just keeps on going. It keeps on going. The modified Julian date, it started at midnight instead of noon. They just modified it and lopped off those two numbers there. And basically, this way, it's a way to be very precise with when something that an astronomer observed happened. You could say it happened on this Julian day. Boom, 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 boom. And everyone will know, okay, well, that's the exact time it happened. So you can put in that Julian day in this software, and it will come up. You're not going to use that probably, but hey, it's good to know that it's there. That is the date and time window. Look at that, we're just cooking. We're moving along here. All right, next up is our third one down, sky and viewing options window. Now, we're not going to go through everything in here because there's so much, and it'll be a 2-hour tutorial, which is probably for a lot of people about 2 hours too long to go through all this minutia, but I'm going to point out some of the highlights and what those highlights show. So on your sky and viewing options window, you have all these different tabs. You have your sky tab, your SSO, that's your solar system objects tab, your deep space objects tab, your markings tab, landscape, Starlord, and surveys, which I'm not going to click because it then downloads different surveys that you can click on to bring into your system. And it takes a while to download, and I don't want to just be sitting here while it does that in front of all you fine people. So, starting with the sky. So, this is where you can manipulate the stars and the lines and the twinkling and what shows up. I said lines, not lines. That's later. Um, the deep things like the Milky Way, stuff that you would see from the ground, or stuff that would be visible to your eye just looking up at the sky. And the first one on there is the Milky Way brightness and saturation. So it's really best to look at the Milky Way in the summer months, because the center of the Milky Way galaxy is in the southern sky for those of us in Holbrook during the summer months. So there's a lot of dust there, a whole lot of stuff happening towards the center of our galaxy. So it's the easiest part to see. The problem with living on Long Island is that the Milky Way is one of the first victims of light pollution, so it's hard to see. But our night sky is coming up. Scorpius, the scorpion, is right there. There's the teapot in Sagittarius, and that's where you're going to find the center of the Milky Way. And if you look closely here, you might see some haze, maybe something like that. And that's what you might see in the real night sky. But the great thing about a planetarium is that you don't need to struggle to see things. You can make things as bright as you want to. So you can adjust the Milky Way here and adjust its saturation as well. And you can see what that does right there. All right. Now, the brightness, you can keep on going. All right. Saturation is between 0 and 1. And you can see what that does there. All right. Zodiacal light brightness, we're not really going to go into that. Basically, it's sunlight that's kind of reflecting off of dust in our solar systems along that ecliptic line, the path the sun goes throughout. You can leave it on, you can take it off, not a big deal. Dynamic eye adaptation. If something is close to a bright object, it'll make it look a little less bright, kind of the way it works with your eye. Again, not a big deal. Atmosphere visualization, so stuff that's going through more of the atmosphere, maybe it doesn't quite look the same, so it's taking into account the thickness of the Earth's atmosphere. Again, those three things, don't really worry about them. Milky Way brightness, worry about that. If you want to see the Milky Way, change the brightness. Light pollution, this is the thing. You can make the sky like you're in a city, like you're in the middle of the country. You can change your light pollution setting. Or if you click on this box, if it has your location in its database, it can give you the proper light pollution setting. Under that, if you have your shooting stars enabled, you can bring the number up or down. All right, so that is pretty cool there. Down below, the projection, it's different projections that you could use, different distortions that you can use. Anytime you take something that looks all curved, like our night sky looks like it's on that celestial sphere, anytime you take something like that and you try to put on something flat, like a 2D screen, you're going to have distortions. So that's just the way it is. So with this one, you can find the distortion that works best for you. All right. And the vertical view port offset, all that is how high or up or down you want to have your landscape. So for example, if I go to now, there we go, bring down the landscape there. I can move that landscape up or down. Okay. Over to the side here, stars. So with this, you can change the scale of your stars. If you're having trouble seeing certain things on the software, you can make the stars bigger. You can make, so you see how stuff's starting to get bigger and brighter, the absolute scale. And then you can do the relative scale, where brighter objects will appear larger in the sky. Now this gets kind of cartoony if you do it too much, so I don't recommend taking that too far off. But if it helps you to see things more clearly, then by all means change the scale. Or if you're using this to point out objects to other people and you want certain stars, brighter things to stand out more, by all means change the scale. You can change the amount of twinkling. You can limit the magnitude of what's going to be visible up in the sky. which can be helpful if you're using this to use naked eye viewing later on. You don't want to have stuff up there that you're not going to be able to see with your eye, so you can limit the magnitude. That's kind of related to light pollution, actually, for naked eye viewing. Light pollution limits what you can see as well. How dim you want labels and markers to be, how dim of an object you want those to show up for, and additional names of stars, you can use that as well. If it has an official name, more of a colloquial name, that type of stuff. So that is the Sky tab. That's one tab that we've gone through. So we're not going to go through all of them like that, but that's one of them, just to give you an idea of how deep this stuff goes. And we're not even going all that deep. It's really a wonderful, wonderful piece of software. On this one here, this is for solar system objects. There's not a whole lot that I would recommend changing on here from the default. You can use more accurate 3D models when available. So if they have it, they'll put it in there. You can show the orbits of different planets. You can change the colors for that. If you want to just be the major planets that you're showing the orbits of, it's pretty self-explanatory if you want to show the trails of the planets. So not the full orbit, but just a certain trail behind the planet so you can see where it's kind of coming from. You can do that. Show planetary nomenclature. So if you zoom in on a planet, for example, let's find Mars. Where are you, Mars? It's got to be somewhere. Maybe if I turned up, yeah, okay. Actually, I could just use my search function to find Mars. Why don't I do that? The search window, you type in Mars, and you search for it. Boom, there it is. Okay, let's zoom in on Mars. So with the planetary nomenclature up there, it has the different features of the planets. It'll bring up those labels for you if you have that selected. If you don't have it selected, surprise, surprise, it won't bring up those labels. So that's the nomenclature there. On the other side, the only thing I would say for this, scale moon. I wouldn't worry too much about these other things here, but scale moon, I recommend clicking that on. It doesn't have it on the default. You have to click it and then save it. I can show you that later, how to save your settings. But scale the moon to about 4. And what that does is it makes the moon kind of look more like what you see in the sky. It's an illusion. The moon is not... Have you ever taken a picture of the moon? It's like, oh, that moon's beautiful. And then you take a picture and it's like, it doesn't look like that. That looks ruddy. I don't like that. This makes the moon look more like you would expect it to look like in a picture. So you're able to identify the phase. It's just easier to see the moon when you scale it. So I do recommend scaling the moon to 4. Labels and markers, again, it's the same thing for solar system objects as it is for sky objects. How dim of an object in the solar system do you want to be labeled? DSO, deep space objects. Unless you are really into deep space objects, I would leave this as the default. All those things that are listed up there, those are all different catalogs that you can download. And you can then bring up those deep space objects in those from those different catalogs. What they have as a default for the vast majority of people using this software, it's going to be enough for you. All right, so don't worry about this tab too much. Same thing goes with markings. The default is fine. These are different markings that you can put onto the celestial sphere, where it looks like the stars are. They're on that sphere, that imaginary sphere up in the sky. These are all different markings that you can have on there. Again, for most of the stuff that you're going to do, you don't need these things. If you get deeper into this study, into astronomy, then by all means, you can start using these. Landscape. Let's go back to our default time to look at the landscape here. And let's bring up our atmosphere. And I'm going to zoom out from Mars. All right, let's bring up our landscape. All right, this is more really, personal preference. You can change the world around you, essentially. Make it suitable to what is around you. These are all just different pictures taken from different places around the world. If you are going to Mars, hey, you can do a Martian landscape. You can do a lunar landscape if you want to go to the moon. If you want a flat horizon, I do recommend the ocean. So you can see stars all the way down to the horizon, and there are no trees or buildings that are in your way. Uh, that's the thing, a lot of times with the landscapes, with these trees, they kind of get in the way. But it does help you if you want to get kind of a real look at, okay, you're not going to see the whole constellation if it's low down in the sky, because a lot of times you will have trees, houses, buildings in your way. So you can use them for that. I like this one. This is from France, a little town in France, and I like it because it does have some trees, but they're pretty low down. It's a good landscape to give you an idea of where things are in relation to the ground, but the ground doesn't get too much in the way, which is why I like this stuff. Okay, that's all you really need on that. I mean, if you want to still see your landscape at night, you can click on the minimal brightness there, so you can still see the buildings and the trees. But that's play more with this stuff really than this stuff over here. Starlord, my favorite. Ah, we are so Eurocentric, Western centric in our view of the sky. The constellations come from the ancient Greek. The planets come from the Roman names for them. But there were so many cultures out there that looked up, saw things up in the sky, and named them. And Stellarium excels in acknowledging and showing them. Now, it doesn't show them all as well as it does with the modern and Western constellations, but they are there. So the default is Western constellations. Okay, the modern 88 constellations are up there. But look at all this. Look at all of these different cultures. And when you click on them, it brings up the different constellations that they saw. So for example, here, going from where the Little Dipper down into Draco would be for the modern constellations, for the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota sky culture, we have the Thunderbird over here. So you have different constellations that are made from the same stars. It's an amazing, amazing feature on Stellarium, and it is my favorite one. Again, not all of the cultures have all of the artwork or all of the lines. There's Salamander over there, and the Salamander, and I'm going to actually pause here because this is what you can do. So there's the Salamander, okay, from the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota sky culture. Now, if we change it back over to the modern Western, you can see that in the modern Western, we also have a constellation that's there, but it's Cygnus the Swan. So they saw a salamander, and the ancient Greeks saw a swan, but they both used the same stars to create those constellations. It's just amazing to do the comparisons between the cultures. It's so much fun to do this stuff. Oh, here comes the turtle, and in the Western constellations, that turtle was actually Pegasus, the winged horse. So I'm going to go back to Western constellations now, and there goes Pegasus, the winged horse up there. So this is truly one of my favorite features of Stellarium. All the different cultures that you can bring up, all the different star cultures that you can show in the sky. So here's medieval Chinese sky culture, Babylonian sky culture, uh, so, so many things. I highly recommend getting lost in this menu. You learn so much from it. And Stellarium also gives you background. It doesn't just give you the sky culture, it gives you all this background information in that menu section as well. So do yourself a favor, get lost here. It's fantastic. I love it. Okay, so down here, some of these buttons you'll find down in this lower menu bar here, but you can adjust things. For example, I have constellation lines up. You can adjust the thickness of those constellation lines or the thinness of them to make them stand out more or less. Constellation artwork. Here, let me bring it up this here. We can make the constellation artwork more or less bright. So that way, for me, doing this here, if I had my constellation artwork as very hazy, just kind of, showing me in general how the artwork lines up with the constellations, you wouldn't be able to really see it on the screen. So for something like this, where I'm sharing my screen with you, it really comes in handy to have that option there. So this is definitely my favorite tab. And again, we're not going to go through the surveys. You can download different surveys of the universe, but they take a long time to load up to my computer, probably because it's slow. And you don't really need to use it if you're doing basic sky watching. Search window. This is one that we just used before when we were looking for Mars. So I'm going to go back to now. I'm going to bring up the sky, turn off everything so we get a blank slate again. You can just search for anything. For example, the moon's over there. Let's look for moon. Search. Oh, look at that. The moon. It selects it, it centers it, and at that point you can zoom in and out from it. So that search bar, it's pretty cool. You can search different catalogs. You can search the coordinates. So you can look up, if you have the coordinates for something, you can look up that coordinate and it will show you what's there. You have different lists that you can go through, so you can, and it's, wow, this is great stuff. You can go through everything and search that way. So these are all different asterisms that are up there. So for example, the Big Dipper, also known as the plow, it'll bring you right to it. Of course, you don't see it because the atmosphere is on, but there's the Big Dipper right there. You can search through all of those things, and of course you have different options as well. You don't really need to worry too much about that stuff. All right, so let's see. I'm actually curious if it will do Orion. Yeah, we'll do Orion. Okay, so we'll also do it for constellations, and there's Orion right there, and you can bring up the constellation artwork, the names, the lines, all that good stuff right there. Search window. I don't really use the search window too much because I'm more interested in going to a time and a location, looking up and seeing what is already there. So I'm not too deep into the search function myself. All right, configuration window. So let's say you set up everything. You have everything set up exactly as you want it. I want it to start up at the default time. I want it to start up with the atmosphere up. I want it to start up with the landscape on, and I want it facing north. And I want my moon scale times 4, and that's what I want it to be. That's what I want. Well, all you do is you go to your configuration window, you deselect Orion because it'll save it. You hit Save View, that'll save where your startup view is, and then you hit Save Settings. So you can modify this however you want, and then you can save that so that becomes your default startup. If you want to go back to what Stellarium originally had, you just hit Restore Defaults. You can change your program language to whatever language you want it to be. Information, So did you notice when I clicked on an object in the sky, for example, let me take this out, and where's, yeah, Arcturus over there, okay? See all the stuff that comes up over here? This is where you can add or take away all that information. So if all you want to know is the name, the apparent magnitude and the absolute magnitude, you don't care about any of this other stuff here. Maybe you want to know what the constellation is. Actually, I want to know the distance too. Uh, but if you don't care about all that, you can take it in, you can take it out, put it in. You can customize it however you want. So you get as little or as much information about each object coming up there. The extras, so the stuff up top, that's pretty deep, more deep than what I'm going to go into here. But the stuff at the bottom here, show constellation boundaries button, show asterism lines button, show ecliptic grid button. These are all buttons that you can have appear on this bottom menu here. So if you want constellation boundaries button, so instead of seeing the constellation lines, you want to have the constellation boundaries, you can put that on and constellation boundaries will appear. Now, I didn't have the chance to make my constellation boundaries, those lines, much brighter in my other menu, so you probably don't see them too well on this screen here. But there are constellation boundaries there, all right? Because remember, constellations are not pictures in the sky or patterns of stars. Constellations are areas of the sky, defined areas of the sky. So you can toggle those buttons on or off if you want them to show up or not, all right? So that is extra. Time. So you can change the time to be whatever you want it to be. The order of time to whatever order you want. If you want it to be year, month, date. If you want it to be, well, golly, day, month, year, month, day, year. You can change it to whatever you want it to be. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, startup date and time. You can set it for whatever your system date is time is. That's the default. So that whatever your system time is at, that's what Stellarium will go to as well. Tools. You don't really need to use this so much. I don't think you have a spheric mirror, so you don't need to worry about spheric mirror distortion. It's pretty cool. I mean, you have a projector and you project it onto a mirror that reflects it, and then you can fill up a whole dome with it. I don't think most of you have that, so I don't think you need to worry about it. And most things in here you do not need to worry about. So that's great. Scripts. This is another one for you to get lost in. So you can just double click on a script. These are all altruistically given by other people who wrote them. Alexander Wolf wrote this one here, thanks. Different sky cultures, and all you do is, for example, a lunar eclipse. Let's go see a lunar eclipse. Total lunar eclipse. You click it, you click play, and this is a little tiny program that was written by someone that tells Stellarium, go to this day and time, a day of a lunar eclipse. Just select the moon, zoom in on the moon, hit play at however much faster than the time is going, than default time, and you can see the lunar eclipse in time. Kind of cool. There's the blood moon there. So it's good times, you know? And all you have to do is click. I didn't do anything just then. I just clicked, hit play, and it went. So that's kind of fun. Now I'm going to stop time. I'm going to go back to now. I'm going to bring up our landscape and our atmosphere again. And let's go back to that configuration window. So again, you can play in here. This is definitely a place to play in. So 3D sceneries. This is something I don't know anything about. Shh, don't tell anybody. All right. But I'm going to play with that, and maybe, who knows, down the road there will be a part 3 where we talk about plugins. That sounds fun, doesn't it? Now, since I started playing with Stellarium, this is a new one that's come up, Astronomical Calculation Windows. So with this, uh, you can it's a great tool for predictions. What is going to be in the sky? So show objects brighter than magnitude 6. That's pretty much the dimmest object that a human eye can see, that are solar system objects. And it will show you all the things up in the sky that are that magnitude. It will show you what the magnitude is. The lower the number, the brighter the magnitude. So the sun, obviously, is the brightest thing in our sky. So it tells you where the sun is, it tells you the brightness, and it even tells you how long it's up in the sky, so, or how long it takes it to go across the sky. What I love is this, the What's Up Tonight feature. All right, you can do things, and it like the ephemeris, you can like show the dots of where something is throughout a certain period of time, transits, phenomena up in the sky. But what I love is the What's Up Tonight. So you can look for planets, let's say, or galaxies, but planets. All right, and this shows you um, what's going to be up in the sky any time of the night tonight. So it shows you the magnitude. Obviously, it shows you the name, the magnitude, when it's going to rise for your location. Remember, we're in Holbrook. It shows you how long it's going to take for it to go across the sky and when it is going to set. So it's got great information of what's going to be up in the sky that night, tonight. And remember, when we were looking at the sky, well, tonight for me anyway, we saw that Jupiter and Mars were going to be up there in the sky. So yeah, this other stuff that's on here, that's great, that's fun. So you can, look for two different objects up in the sky and see the distance between them. It's really great stuff. But for us and what we're doing, that What's Up Tonight, that WUT tab, is really the best one to use, because it predicts what will, doesn't predict, it knows what will be up in the sky that night. And then, of course, the help window. And it just gives you all of your keyboard shortcuts, which are very handy to have. The one that I use the most is the zoom in and out, which is the / and the \, but there are all different keyboard shortcuts that you can use on Stellarium. So if you're using it on a laptop, you can use that. About Stellarium and your log. Okay. And that, my friends, is a deeper dive into Stellarium. It's something else, isn't it? It's such an incredible program. I hope that I gave you an idea of how powerful it is. It goes far beyond what I need it for, what I use it for, but it's nice to know that you can use it for stuff that's pretty in-depth, pretty incredible stuff. It's used in different planetariums, actual planetariums around the world. I use it all the time. It's used in portable domes, a version that has been modified to be used in a dome. It really is one of the most simple to use, yet powerful and accurate planetarium software out there. So I hope you enjoyed our tutorials, parts 1 and 2. I hope that you get to go back to Sachem Public Library again soon, because libraries are just so vital to our world. And I hope one day to see you in person here at the Cradle of Aviation. I'd love to take you on a tour of the sky in our planetarium. It's really something to see. 76 feet wide, third biggest dome in the nation, and I miss teaching in it. So I hope to see you soon. And until then, keep looking up and have a great day.